Hi, it's Jan Beta, and we're going to try to resurrect this very poorly Commodore 16 today. Many moons ago, I made a Repairathon of Commodore 16s, and I managed to quickly fix most of them. This one was one that I couldn't fix. It is in pretty poor condition optically, quite yellowed, and there's some sticker residue here and things like that. And this also has a switch in the back for a memory expansion that's built in here. It's relatively easy to mod these to have 64 kilobytes of RAM instead of the original 16 kilobytes, so that all the games that were made for the +4 machine also work on the C16. And that mod was done on this one. I don't really remember what else was wrong with this. It doesn't even have the screws in, so it's really easy to get inside. I'm going to take this completely apart and have another look at this. And maybe this time we're going to be able to fix it. So first of all, I know that I already had this running, so there's not much risk in doing that again. I'm just going to hook it up to a power supply and to my screen here. And I'm going to show you what it does. LED lights up. We don't even get a video sync signal from this one. So something is very wrong with this, and we're going to dig into it, I guess. First order of operations is to take it apart and get the circuit board out of here so we can actually work on that. The only thing that works at this point is the LED, which I just disconnected. So yeah, we're going to see. Usually what breaks in these is the processor or the TAT chip, which is the heart of the whole operation here in these 264 line machines. If that breaks, you don't have graphics or sound. I'm sorry, I don't remember who donated this to me. I'm pretty sure it was a donated machine, but it's been so long ago and I didn't mark this in any way, foolishly. I'm just going to thank whoever it was that donated this machine. So let's talk to this. There's another screw here. And I guess the reasonable thing to do would be to actually revert the mod here. Okay, and I just realized that we might have a little problem here, because it seems I put all the broken chips in here that I had. It has all the chips, but they're all crossed out, which usually in my language here means that these are broken. This is the TAT chip, the 8501 CPU. But yeah, we have this mod here, which seems to be pretty nicely done actually. Connects to quite a few chips, and the RAM chips have been replaced with 41464, which are a total of 64K of memory. And we are going to revert that whole thing. I think I'm just going to desolder the wires here and just try to get this to work in its original state as the first step, and then maybe do my own mod to this later on. Yeah, just removing these wires here, and I think one of the pins on this 74LS257 chip is lifted. That's where this wire connects to. I'm just going to reconnect that to the board. I'm going to find some chips for this. I have another C16 that is halfway working that I'm going to put the chips in to this one to see if we can make it work. I don't think I have another CPU. These are the chips that break the most frequently. I guess something went wrong during production and they all disintegrate basically. And especially the revision 1 of the 8501 and the 7501 in general really frequently break. So yeah, let's just desolder these wires and connect this pin back up to the main board. And then we're going to go from there. I think this mod was done in a different way than what I did, but I guess it's just the 64K mod. So that one's gone. want to clean this chip up a bit, I think. And we can just remove the board from the casing completely. So yeah, I'm just removing the solder residue from this, at least to some extent. There we go, that looks a lot better. And I think, yeah, we can just get it out here. Oh, it says Zölle, December 5th of 1987. Probably that's when the mod was done. It's a German version, I think. At least Zölle seems to be a German name. Interesting. Whoever that was, sorry for reverting your mod. We are going to solder this pin back to the circuit board, I guess. Maybe it's just this mod that was bad. So that was just cut and bent, I think. Yeah, looks like it. So we should be able to just reconnect it with a blob of solder, I guess. Just bend it down here, like so. And solder it back on to the pin that is still in the circuit board there. Yeah, that should be reconnected, I think. Measuring on the top. Oh, we have the... So we're going to have to remove this as well, of course. Which I think is just clipped on. With these bent tabs here. I completely forgot about these machines in the meantime. Just going to measure if our chip makes a connection to the backside of the board. Here. Yep. So that should be good. I'm going to clean this a bit, the chip that we removed, and put it back in. And then I'm going to take apart another one of these and put the chips from that in here, I guess, just to see if reverting the mod already fixed our system, which might very well be, but there may be other things wrong with this, of course. And we're going to have to make a kind of a makeshift processor, I think, because I don't have any 8501s or 7501s, which are the same, just different manufacturing processes. Don't have any of those spare anymore. Removing the RAM chips, and I'm pretty sure I have the original RAM chips somewhere that I can just put in here. So these need to go. And these are actually not sockets. Yeah, this looks pretty shoddy, so I might just put proper sockets in there. These are just pin headers, basically, and have been soldered in there pretty shoddily. Oh, there's another cut pin here that we need to revert. We need to do the same that we did previously with the other chip on this pin here. I just clipped the pins when they did the mod. Yeah, which is relatively easy to revert, actually, which is not a bad idea, I guess. I would have probably desoldered the whole chip and socketed it and things like that. But this works reasonably well. Let's see if it still makes a connection to the pin on the back side here. Yep, it makes a connection. The next step should be to remove these things here and put some proper sockets in there. So I'm just going to desolder these pin headers, and these are 18-pin sockets that we need, and I only have 20-pin sockets, but I'm just going to clip them on one end, so they are going to fit. I've done that before in my C64 repair that I did recently, and that worked reasonably well, so we're just going to do it again. I'm going to add some flux here because I have no idea how old this solder is. And then we're going to desolder them. Okay. These things can just go to trash. Okay, let's put some sockets in there. After modifying them, because they're clearly too many pins. So I'm just going to cut the end off. Just looked at the traces a bit and they look intact, so no damage was done to this. And this looked like a machine that was actually used quite a lot, so chances are this was working with the modification in it at one point. So let's find some chips to populate this with, I guess. Maybe we already made it work. Maybe it was just the switch of the modification or something that wasn't doing great. And for the CPU replacement, because I don't have an 8501 or a 7501 spare, we're going to solder up this little board, which is an adapter to use a 6510 as an 8501. It doesn't reproduce all the functionality of the 8501, but we are going to probably be able to use this as a stand-in. And we are also going to have to make another kernel ROM. But yeah, these were donated to me by Dean ages and ages ago when I last worked on the Commodore 16s. I think in 2019 or 2018, I'm not sure, but this was a long time ago. Now these are going to come in handy. I have two of these and I actually have two Commodore 16s without a working 8501 CPU. So yeah, there is one version available on PCBWay as a shared project that I'm going to link in the description as well. These are available on eBay for very little money from the UK. Still, to this day, these exact boards that I'm using here. Basically what we do, we solder sockets onto the top to hold the 6510 and we solder pins to the bottom to go to the board. And then this has another little connector for a workaround with the tape motor, but we're not going to use this with the data set at this point. So we don't need to close this. In case you have a data set connected to one of these systems with a 6510, the tape motor is just going to run all the time in case you close this little solder jumper. And there's workarounds for making that work, but we're going to look at that at another time, I think. At this point, we're just going to solder this up to have a replacement CPU. And coincidentally, this video is also sponsored by PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs of all kinds. They also do CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, you name it. Basically a one-stop solution for the tinkerer's needs. Pricing is super reasonable, they are friendly people to work with, and delivery is fast, so I highly recommend checking out the link in the video description. Back to our Commodore 16. And there we go. One adapter done. In order to use our adapter board here with a 6510, we're going to have to burn another kernel ROM replacement. Otherwise, we won't have some of the functionality. Especially the serial ports are not going to work, so we can't really use a disk drive or a replacement for a disk drive. And this is hackjunk.com, and there's a link to the ROM somewhere down the page here. 6510 kernels for C16. There's one version for PAL systems and one for NTSC. We are going to use the PAL version because that's what we have here. We are going to burn this onto a 27C256 EEPROM, which is what I have at the moment. You could use a 27C128 and this would fit perfectly in there. And programming was successful, so we have our ROM on this EEPROM now. And then of course we need the other chips as well. This is actually where our ROM goes. And yeah, I put the label on upside down from this perspective. This is how this is supposed to go. But it doesn't matter functionally. So we're going to pull this ROM, which has an X on it. That means it's probably not working. Checked many of these chips in working C16s to determine that they are apparently completely broken. In fact, so this goes in here. Our CPU needs replaced and our TAT chip. The CPU, of course, is going to be replaced with our socket, with our adapter board. Goes in there nicely, and we need a 6510 to go on top there. And for the RAM, we could actually use the 41464 RAM chips that this came with, the 64K RAM. In fact, some of the later C16s already shipped with these chips because the 4416, which was originally in here, weren't produced anymore at the point that they were still producing these boards. So yeah, Commodore just used 41464 chips instead of the 4416, which are these. I have plenty of these, so we're just going to use 4416. I have a replacement TAT actually that I want to try. So let's populate everything. So our 6510 is one that I used in previous C64 repairs and determined to be okay. These are new old stock 4416 chips from Texas Instruments. So I suppose these are good. These are new old stock, literally. So I bought plenty of those a while back because I had the opportunity, and you never know when they come in handy. So here we go. Okay, all the chips are in there again. Hopefully all good chips. I'm not sure. We're going to see what this says. So yeah, let's fire this up. I have my screen connected and see what it does. Hope this is just going to fire up. Nope, but at least it gives me a PAL signal here. Maybe let's test if my adapter board here and the ROM actually work in a working C16. That would be my next thing that I want to try. And then a lot of things could be wrong with this. Potentially, of course. At least it now gives me a PAL signal, so the TAT was probably very much dead. That's better than before, at least. Might still have a bad PLA and things like that. This is kind of like a C64 in that basically everything could lead to a blank screen like we have here. Basically all the chips. If one of them breaks, this could be the result. Yeah, let's test our adapter board and the ROM that we made in another C16. This one from the Repairathon thing that I did. And I managed to fix this one. I think it had a bad CPU. Was just one of the ones that just had a bad CPU. And this needs some love. The case is super shoddy. And yeah, it doesn't look great. But this apparently should work if we put a CPU in there. Just going to put our EEPROM in there. And we're going to pull our processor adapter thingy. So that goes in there. Let's see if this fires up with the adapter board in there. No. Okay. So maybe our adapter board is bad. Or maybe our ROM is bad. Let's try with the original ROM. Maybe that is bad. Nope. So something with our adapter board there. Probably. Maybe we should just build another one and hope that that works. So here's my good Commodore 16. That should actually work. Yep, that works no problem. So let's see if our adapter board works in here. This has actually been upgraded with 64K RAM. Okay, 6510 goes in here. So let's see if this fires up. No. So something's wrong with our adapter board there. Yeah, but I'm just going to build the other one, I guess. And until then, we are going to be stuck with our original CPU that we're just going to use in the machine we're working on to test that, I guess. Yeah, I'm just going to use a working ROM, which says OK, and the processor from my working C16 in the machine that we're working on. Let's see if this fires up with that. Nope. It doesn't. So something is not right with this machine. And also something is not right with my CPU adapter board. So what I'm going to do, I think, is to try the PLA in a working system, the one that is in here. See if that works. So what I'm doing here is just ruling out stuff. So this is kind of a bad approach, but it's the quickest approach at hand here. So these are okay. Just going to try my other ROM in here. Let's see if that is okay. Yeah, that's okay. We have some stuff that works, at least. This is our PLA. We're going to try the one from the broken board here. Just determine if that is okay. Oh, okay, we have a bad PLA in that board. Okay, so I'm marking this as bad. Okay, that was kind of easy to find. So that might very well be the cause. Sorry, I didn't show the screen. It just shows a blank screen with this PLA, which was the one from our original board. So I think what I want to do now is, of course, put this OK chip in here. This is my OK ROM. Put the processor from here into here again. And the working PLA, I guess. Wildly swapping chips, basically. But we're going to diagnose a bit further in a second, I guess. So yeah, this is we determined this is okay. Always a good idea to put chips in a working system to see if they are actually working. This we don't know, but it's a one that was given to me to be okay, the TED. The ones with the heat sinks are the one from my working system here. So let's see if that gives us anything. If it's just a broken PLA, I might have a good replacement for that. How about I just show you the screen again? Let's see. Nope. There's still more broken stuff on here. Maybe try a working TED in here. Or maybe try the TED from here in the other board. Problem is that I only have one board that's completely working at this point, and I'm going to have to swap chips around it quite a bit. Yeah, I guess we need the processor board to work, so I'm probably just going to see if we can make that work. So I soldered up another processor adapter board here, and we're going to try if this one actually works. And we're going to replace our ROM. This is the working machine. So my hope is that this just made bad contact with something. Ah, okay, let's see if this now powers up, which it technically should if our adapter works at all. And if our CPU, our 6510 actually works, but that did work until very recently. That was the exact one I used in my previous C64 repair video. Let's see, fingers crossed. We need power. Fingers crossed. This is the working C16 with my newly made adapter board now. Yeah, so my adapter board was somewhat wonky there. That sucks. Okay, now we have a working adapter board that we can hopefully use to troubleshoot the broken C16 further. Do I want to try anything else? Yeah, I want to try the original ROM in here. If it starts up with the original ROM at least. It should probably start up, but serial and things like that won't work. Let's see. Yep, it starts up. Okay, that's good to know. So we can use the original ROM to fire it up somewhat. Make a note of that in my mind. So this now gets our determined to be somewhat working tower of CPU. And we need a new PLA for this. And thankfully, I have this Plankton TAD, which is a version of the Plankton that is available for the C64. This is a version for the C16 and C116. This is made by Francois, who sent this to me. And we're just going to try to use it here. And yeah, maybe this just fires up, which would be unlikely. But at least this should replace the functionality of our broken PLA in there. And we get a pulse signal, but we don't get much else. So this needs some work. Just going to get the scope started up, I guess.
One eternity later.
Well, it's a couple of hours later actually, and I poked around with the oscilloscope and probed the pins on the CPU and found that some of the data lines didn't look very nice. Otherwise, everything seems to work fine. The address bus looks good. The data lines had some noise on them. And I remembered upon poking around with the oscilloscope that I have a Diag 264 EEPROM that I made for another repair a while back. And I stuck this in there. And now let me show you what this shows me. That's basically wildly flashing. This is the initial RAM test that this does, and the border flashes 2 times. That means something's wrong on the data bus, which we also found with the oscilloscope. I can probably show you on the scope as well. These are the data pins. This looks pretty fuzzy. This looks pretty fuzzy. This looks pretty fuzzy. This looks particularly noisy. Data lines 5 and 6 and thereabouts look a bit noisy. And these are, of course, hooked up to the RAM. So what I did then was to put the original RAM chips that were in here back, the 41464 RAM chips, which are compatible with 4416 RAM chips. And actually, the machine started to run, as we're going to see. So these are the original RAM chips that I'm just going to put in here. The original ones that this machine got here. And now the Diag just starts further testing. So it doesn't crash in the beginning with the initial RAM test. And just starts going through its test paces. So what I then did off camera as well, because I got kind of fed up with this thing, was to put some other 4416 RAM in here from my parts bin. And I think this is what was in my working Commodore 16 originally. that I modded to have 64K. And these RAM chips also start up the diagnostics fine. So chances are the new old stock 4416 RAM that I have in my stash here is pretty bad. I think that's what it is. Let's see if this machine now starts up with the regular ROM or the 6510 modded ROM. And then that should probably be that, if that starts up. But I think it will. It just had very badly broken RAM. So the 6510 modded ROM in there, and this should now start up. Yeah, it starts up totally fine. So the RAM that was new old stock was bad. And yeah, so was pretty much everything else in this system, considering the chips. The PLA was bad. That was probably what prevented this from running with the mod in place. The original kernel ROM was bad. The TAT was bad. And it didn't have a processor. So now it is actually fixed. I'm going to do some tests on my new old stock 4416 RAM that I bought. Maybe these are incompatible for some reason. Maybe these are too fast or something. These are 441615, and the ones I put in here are also 441615 from Texas Instruments. So basically the same thing. They should work in theory, but they didn't. So this just goes to show that even if you buy new old stock chips, you can't be sure that these old RAM chips still work, or any other chips for that matter. So yeah, I'm really relieved. I poked around for quite a while and I had to turn the camera off because, as I said, I got kind of fed up and stuck. And I hate it when that happens, when I can't see anything that's really wrong. But the data lines looked suspicious, and thankfully I remembered my Diag 264 ROM, which is super handy for things like this. And this clearly indicated a RAM fault. I'm going to link to this in the video description as well. There's a version that replaces the kernel ROM on the board, and there's also a version that you can put in a cartridge, which makes this super versatile. There are instructions to build a loopback harness for this on the website and things like that. I didn't even need to build that for this repair, it seems. So I fired up my Retro Chip Tester Pro that I made a whole video about building. This is of course the deluxe kind of chip test. DRAMs 4416. Okay, we are going to test these chips. Let's see. That's a bad one. That's a bad one. Yeah, I guess my chips are either fake or bad. I'm just going to test all of the ones I have and just mark the ones that are bad. I bought a lot of these. I don't remember where these came from, otherwise I'd warn you. Probably I got them on eBay or something. Maybe. Yeah, these are clearly not used at all. These are new old stock. But sometimes these old chips just break. For no reason at all. That's bad as well. And I kind of trust the Retro Chip Tester here. That's another one. And I bought 2 tubes of these, so that's 10 chips. So maybe they are all bad. That's bad as well. Maybe these are just fake. That's bad as well. It doesn't even start the test really. These are all very, very bad. Maybe they are no RAM chips at all. Maybe somebody just sold something as RAM chips. They're all bad. Okay, I got fooled. I admit to that. These are all completely and utterly dead. No wonder the C16 didn't work with these. This is what they look like. Do they all have the same printing on them? Yeah, they do. They might be fake. They might be something completely different. I might just go in and use some acetone to see if there's something under the print there. Let's see. This is usually a good test. Yeah, the print just wipes away. You can see that this becomes completely black. These are fake. Let's see. We can see what these really are. Okay, so the top layer comes off, but then it reveals the same print underneath, basically. So maybe this is a batch of chips that they tried to reprint and failed reprinting. I'm not sure. I can't get any more off. Yeah, this is super strange. This is after wiping this, and this is before wiping. So it has the same, these are 4416 with the exact same print, but somebody put a layer of paint over there to make the print look a bit dimmer. And this doesn't wipe off. This is what these chips originally are. So these are just fried 4416s, I guess. That somebody put a layer of paint on to make them look like they are from a newer production run or something. I am not sure. If you have any idea, let me know in the comments. That's what they are for. The only thing that I can be pretty sure of is that these are all completely broken. So lose-lose for me. But yeah, maybe if you see some of these with the darker print, don't buy them. Just be warned about eBay purchases of ICs from back in the day. Yeah, I'm just going to put this back together for now. And yeah, I have more plans for C16s in the future. But I just wanted to see if I could make another working one from the broken ones that I had. And this clearly needs some optical refinements as well. Some retro bright. Maybe that's something for another video at some point. But hey, it works. Even though it was kind of a journey. And I found out that all my 4416 RAM is broken. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Kind of a lot of red herrings, but yeah, most of the chips in this were broken and this was kind of a shot in the dark. And then those RAM chips were actually fake, or at least broken. Can't always win, but in the end, I managed to at least make this work somewhat with the processor adapter. Thank you so much for your time. Hope this was entertaining anyway, and maybe a bit informative. The links to everything I used are going to be in the video description. Thank you so much for your comments and your likes and your subscriptions, which are super important. So if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to this channel in case you like chaotic retro repairs. You've come to the right place. Special thanks, as usual, to everybody who supports me on Patreon or on Ko-fi or on the YouTube channel memberships page. Very much appreciated. These things would not be possible without your financial help. Thanks for watching. I'm Jan Beta. See you next time. Bye.